Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session of Politics in the Car. And on tonight's session, I want to try and work through some of the myths around the toxic chemicals being dumped in the West, Labor, Liberal, trans-urban, what's going on, what's actually happening here. So first of all, the first thing I want to address is that the West is becoming quite politically dynamic. With gentrification occurring, we're starting to see a lot more people fighting for the area. And a lot of people saying, marginal seats get more. We've actually recently realised that those games are corrupt. It's been in the paper, marginal seats getting stuff. It should be based on needs. And that's where politics should be. Second of all, the dumping of these chemicals have always occurred in the West because that's where the facilities were to take on these chemicals. Bacchus Marsh, Sunshine, all those old quarries turned into tips. It's what's happened, and it's not right. And back in the day, people didn't actually understand that. They didn't know that these chemicals, cause cancer. And it's something I'm concerned about because I've grown up in Sunshine, I've grown up in the West, and I've been exposed to this all my life. So I don't know how short my lifespan is going to be or how it's going to impact me. Second of all, the tunnel needed to be built. It's something that Liberals said they were going to do, and it's something that Labor has done. So regardless of what political side got in, this tunnel is always going to be built. Now, what's happened is that they've found PFAS that's been in the soil due to the fire that was on Coot Island, all those years ago. And the fire department actually used to use PFAS as a fire retardant. It's what the military used to use. It's what they used on their sites. It's why the military sites are all contaminated. So regardless of who got in, this issue was always going to occur. We didn't know that it was there, and so who's at fault here though? So I think some of the myths that's going on, it's blaming Daniel Andrews and Labor. It's not actually their fault. The government, what always happens, the government comes out with an idea, right, we want this built, and they tender the application. They tender it out to the community for people to bid on. So what happens, companies then bid on the tender, and they're supposed to incorporate all this kind of stuff in their costings. They're supposed to have plans in place. Unfortunately, Transurban, who won the tender, didn't foresee there being PFAS in the soil, and it's created an issue because they've got nowhere to put it. So traditionally, it would have gone out to the tips because that's where it's always gone. And they just happen to be in the West because that's the way people have always done it, regardless of safe or not safe seat. It's got nothing to do with it. It's where the main industries were, where they were mining, and they became tips because there were giant holes in the ground. So it just made sense back in the day to do that. So the issue at hand is that it's not actually Labor doing this. Labor hasn't come out and said, right, put it all in the West. No, Transurban is trying to find a solution to an issue they have at the moment. A solution hasn't been identified yet. I understand people are talking about, cleaning the soil, and at current, that system hasn't been developed yet. It's in the process of being developed. So the military at the moment is, investing in cleaning the soil, mitigating all the soil. That's still in early developmental phases because all their sites are contaminated, and they're starting to go through that process of actually cleaning the soil and seeing how they can do it. The issue though, it's through a high pressure wash that cleans the soil, but then you still have tankers full of contaminated water. So I think we're still very early on in seeing a real world applicable solution to this. I don't know how to move forward from this. Perhaps maybe not moving the soil at all and doing it in similar areas where there has been contaminated soil, like when we're looking in Carnlee. Developers who developed the area created that giant mountain of contaminated soil. It's a giant monument on the way to jumping onto the ring road, but the soil was from there. So how do we move forward? But one thing that is certain is that Labor has not said put it in the West. Labor is not putting it in the West. Labor has gone to the company that is contracted to do this job and saying, what are you doing with the soil? So it's unfair to blame Labor. It's unfair to blame Daniel Andrews. And I think we all need to work together instead of, trying to score political points and come up with a real world applicable solution that doesn't put our lives at risk. Because all that political games does is affect me and you. So what do you think? What are some of your solutions to it? Have a good night, everyone.